In the 21st century, the balance between nature and humans is more delicate than ever before. Nowhere is this more evident than in our rivers and oceans. In just 20 years, the number of wild Atlantic salmon has more than halved. Across the world, scientists are racing to understand the cause of this drastic decline. In a remote corner of northeast Iceland, a small team are part of this effort, working to prevent the loss of one of our most iconic species. From cutting-edge technology to cultivation of the natural landscape, to constructing migratory solutions out of granite, this dedicated group are pioneers in their field and are determined to reverse the catastrophic decline in salmon numbers. In September 2021, some of the world's foremost scientists on salmon conservation gathered in Reykjavik to examine data and research from across the species' entire range.
We're passionate about conservation, and we want to try and do something about that.
We have to pool capability, knowledge, expertise if we're to tackle issues like this. There's no point working in isolation from other groups around the world.
Now is the time, this window of opportunity, to establish the baselines, understand what's happening, and then to try and anticipate what we might need to do to act in the future.
Having such a diverse group of people in a really diverse fields of research, it gives us an idea of how we can start to put those pieces together, how we can start building off one another and come at this from a bigger lens.
Salmon conservation is in isolated communities. Six Rivers project, the restoration and the understanding of the work on the Froome, on the Laxford, the Clyde, the Mersey. There's all these success stories around, but these are all isolated communities, and we need to change that from being isolated to society.
We all feel as if we're working in silos, and initiatives like this help get us out of our silos, talk to each other, and it's by talking, finding out that we're not working alone, there's other people doing similar work, is a great motivator, but it's also a good way to progress everything forward.
The North Atlantic Salmon Conservation Organisation, NASCO, has worked to gather data on salmon rivers across the whole of the salmon's range. In total, 2,359 rivers have been reported on. Of those, 43% are at risk or have declining numbers. In the last 36 years, the number of wild Atlantic salmon has fallen by more than half.
By looking at the broad data, in my mind, we are heading for disaster. I don't care whether it's 10 or 50 or 100 years. The disaster is on the horizon. We can just go to the history books and look at the countries where there was plenty of salmon: Spain, France, Ireland, Scotland, Norway, Denmark, Canada. All of these countries have massive decline in salmon. Why shouldn't it happen in Iceland as well?
If we don't do anything, and don't do anything fast, we will probably within next decades be in the position that we're beyond salvation. They won't be able to salve the salmon anymore. I've said to myself and to my children, not on my watch.
For centuries, humans have been fascinated by the salmon species. Their unique life cycle continues to capture the imagination.
Salmon is, for some reason, it's probably one of the most studied organisms on the planet. It's an iconic species.
Salmon begin their life as alevin, emerging from their eggs buried in the riverbed. They spend the next few years in the clean waters of their birth, avoiding predators, finding food, and eventually undergoing a physiological change called smolting, which enables them to survive in salt water.
It's a fairly extraordinary creature in that it spends half its life in a freshwater river system, half its life out at sea. That's sort of pretty remarkable physiology.
This change triggers their departure from the river, and they migrate thousands of miles to their feeding grounds out in the Atlantic.
I live in Scotland, and the fish that leave my local river head up to Norway or across to the west coast of Greenland. They've got this huge ocean migration.
Those that survive the challenges of the open ocean return and fight their way back upstream to the same place they hatched. Carrying with them the genetic blueprint for survival, it is here that they spawn the next generation.
Salmon are ecosystem engineers, and they bring really important nutrients with them when they come back from the ocean to spawn, and those nutrients drive all kinds of ecosystem processes.
Its journey, survival against the odds, and its memory of its origins have given the salmon a mythical status.
It is a symbol of a healthy environment that has a special place in human minds.
Wherever you go in within the Atlantic salmon range, it's an iconic species, both from a cultural and historic perspective, but also an ecological perspective.
With the greatest minds in this field working together on solving this problem, there is one country with particular significance to the plight of the salmon. Iceland.
Life is hard up here, it's remote, it's far away from everything. But that also makes it unique. People come up here and experience the remoteness.
A volcanic frontier, it is one of the least densely populated countries in the world. Its lack of human impact and its cold, clear waters provide an ideal habitat for one of the most iconic fish on the planet.
Iceland's right in the middle of the Atlantic. It's right at the heart of Atlantic salmon. It's a stronghold for the species. There's still really good populations.
Iceland's pristine rivers and their fantastic salmon were discovered by adventurous Europeans early last century.
Salmon fishing in the way we know it today probably came with the travelers that came from the UK, probably over 100 years ago, when they started to come to Iceland and saw the numbers of fish that we had.
The Icelandic rivers are the best fishing in the world. A very clean and clear environment which is around here. It's all natural. There is nobody except the birds and the animals and the fish.
Today, Iceland is regarded as one of the premier angling destinations in the world, and fishing here is more than just a sport.
Now it's remarkably exclusive, and there's a high demand to get into our rivers and to be able to fish there. If we draw this together and say salmon fishing, and also other kinds of fishing in Iceland, but mostly salmon fishing, has become very important for our economy.
But the cultural and commercial status of salmon has not helped its struggle. For scientists, Iceland's isolation makes it one of the best places on Earth to study the species. The lack of outside influences provide a simpler picture of the pressures affecting salmon.
By having a simpler system, we're able to investigate the factors that might be affecting the Atlantic salmon population in a way that people with rivers that run through heavy agricultural areas or industrial areas can't. Therefore, we may be able to make a pretty good contribution, I think, to the overall effort on Atlantic salmon.
The fact that these populations are fairly untouched, I think that's interesting to see this interaction between what's happening in more of a natural system to be compared to which populations were affected more by human impacts.
It's this combination of purity and incredible fishing that was the catalyst for a new project in the northeast. British entrepreneur Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a keen angler and conservationist. In 2012, during a fishing trip to the Sellau River, he learned of the salmon struggle and the conservation efforts of the Strengur Angling Club.
One of the things in my life that I enjoy is wilderness that's sort of untouched by humans or not spoiled by humans, which is why I spend a lot of time in Iceland. So I think one of the great joys in life is being able to observe, the animal kingdom, really. I think the planet would be a rather tragic place if all we had left were humans and we've wiped out all the other species.
He's come here for many years and he understands that it is very important for us to undertake this work. He sees where it is going and what is needed. And he's very much involved, hands-on, this project. He would like to do as much as possible.
With the backing of Sir Jim, the club was able to expand their conservation efforts across 5 other rivers in the area. And with that, the project had a new name.
The Six Rivers project is a non-profitable environmental program. Its primary goal is to preserve the Atlantic salmon.
Sellau, Vesterdalsá, Hofsa, Sunnadalsá, Mjófjarðará and Haflaronsa. These 6 rivers offer some of the finest catch and release fishing in the world.
The scenery here is exceptional. You've got this sort of solitude. This is an enormous river, the Sella, but only 6 people fish it. 6 rods for, I don't know what it is, 60 or 70 kilometres of river with 6 of you on it. So it's a very, very different feeling fishing a river rather than fishing a beat.
It's this exclusive access, along with luxury lodges and incredible landscapes, that fund the business model.
The idea with those river systems up there is to manage them in a profitable manner, so they're sustainable entities for the long term. In other words, the sport fishing income pays for the cost of running the river and subsidises the local farmers. And then any surplus income gets fed back into the research programmes. There's no profit motive here at all. No, quite the opposite, actually.
With renewed drive and funding, the team were able to start realising their ambitions.
The first steps we took to improve the ecosystem was to reduce the equipment that you can use for fishing. We did take out worm and spinning, so we're only left with fly fishing. And after that, we started catch and release in the river. So that was the first steps we took on our journey to increase the numbers of stock in the river. Then we started building ladders.
Salmon can leap almost 4 meters, but even that isn't enough for some of the waterfalls on these majestic rivers. Ladders are constructions that help the fish overcome these geological obstacles and reach new spawning grounds upriver.
If you look at the history of Sellau, in 1967 or 1968, the river system was only 5 kilometers long. And what we did then is we added a fish ladder. And by doing that, we added on 20 kilometers of water. And the river went from being a salmon river of 150 fish up to 1,000 in less than 10 years because we added on to the spawning area.
It's expensive, it's difficult technically, so it's been a long process. And we started with Jim, and with his help and understanding and the enthusiasm of all parties involved, the owners and everyone, we have managed to get to where we are now. With this ladder, we are trying to use the ground as much as possible. To do this, we need a digger, we need a jackhammer, a big jackhammer, and we need time. It's more time consuming. We have to be careful. We have to use the cracks in the earth to formulate the ladder a little bit. We cannot go too far because we cannot go back. If we take too much gravel out, we can't go back. So it's
combination of skill and patience.
With access to more of the river and salmon numbers increasing tenfold, the next step was to ensure that the habitat could sustain these new populations.
As we improve populations in the river, we need to know that those populations can be supported by the food coming into the river. So it's a simple energy flow. You have to put biomass in, energy into the river, that feeds through the different levels of sort of species in the river, ultimately in these rivers to the fish, and therefore the fish rely on this.
An integrated part of the Six Rivers project is to regenerate woodland, wooded vegetation, also along the rivers. As many parts of the Northwest Europe, there used to be more trees than is the case now at this moment in time. So replanting it will have a positive benefit.
Thousands of years ago, the Icelandic landscape would have been covered with trees, but agriculture has changed that. Today, replanting requires a scientific understanding of the land.
This is a volcanic soil. It's different from what you see in Europe. It's rich of minerals, but there's a lack of organic material and there's a lack of nitrogen and phosphor. And for that reason, it's really hard for the plants to grow. Water and wind during the winter and this constant frost heaving in the winter makes it very, very hard for the plants to grow. There are big problems in many spots along the river here in many places in Iceland with erosion.
We are using birch, which is a native plant, but very strong. And beside that, we are using a willow, which are present everywhere in Iceland and very strong plants. It will be an advantage for the river, for the land, and it will be carbon sequestration as well. But it's a long-term project. I mean, we just started here, and maybe after 50 years we can see results of this work. But somebody has to start it.
Taking care of the land is vital to the health of the rivers. It's for this reason that the Six Rivers Foundation works so closely with local farmers.
The thing about these rivers is they're in the community. They're in farms border the rivers. What we're trying to do with our conservation work here is not just support the Atlantic salmon, but to support the community as well.
Farming in Iceland is a culture that stretches back to the earliest Viking settlers. This far north, it is a hard occupation to pursue, and traditional farms are becoming fewer and fewer with every passing generation.
No, my family has been here since 1532. I'm the 15th generation that takes over the farm. But I've always been involved in the farming. I've been helping out on the farm since I was just a little kid, since I could do anything. It's hard to get people to move back to the countryside. They grow up here, they go somewhere studying, and very few come back. And also the average age of sheep farmers is close to 60. It's gotten higher through the years. Most sheep farmers need a second job along with the farming, as the circumstances are now in sheep farming. In this area, it's partly known for the salmon. I mean, it's here Vopnafjörður. It's these great salmon rivers, and it's a mecca of salmon fishing.
The rental of fishing beats and the income generated by the angling economy helps to supplement the farming and those who work in these rural strongholds of Icelandic culture.
Já, við erum náttúrulega svo heppin að eiga þrjár virkilega góða laxveiðiár. Nú þetta hefur náttúrulega í gegnum tíðina skapað landeigendum arð og samfélaginu bara viðskipti og þannig að þetta mjög mikilvægt og þetta hefur náttúrulega verðmæti þessara auðlindar hefur vaxið og við höfum verið að rækta. Mér finnst verkefni sem að Six River Project stendur fyrir vera mjög jákvæð og virkilega hugsuð til framtíðar. Það greinilegt að menn ekki bara að hugsa næstu ár, heldur áratugi og Það held ég sé mjög vel.
The small villages and the locals have been struggling for a long time, having difficulty to live and to be sustainable. With these programs, we are generating income for the local communities, for them to be able to live on and hopefully attract more people to come in the future.
It benefits everyone to have the salmon healthy and the rivers healthy.
With improved habitats attracting more fish to the rivers, the team also use relocation methods, giving the salmon an introduction to their new neighbourhoods.
Nothing up here except this road, no farms, no fields, absolutely nothing. We're going to the top of the river, basically the top waterfall. It's just beautiful up here, absolutely beautiful. I love it. In our conservation work, we are, for example, relocating fish. We catch fish in the end of the season. We place them in boxes. We try to choose very carefully where we catch those fish in the river. We take them from pools that we think are okay to take 1 or 2 fish out of. And then we drive them on a tank, in a car, on a trailer with oxygen up to the top. And there we have another box ready. We place them in the box and leave them in the box for a few days till they get used to the area, to the water they are in, and then we release them. We think it's absolutely crucial to treat salmon as well as we can and show them as much respect as we can, because every single one of them is important.
Encouraging fish to make a home in a new section of river does not stop there.
We do it in a way that we are trying to intervene as little as possible into the natural spawning. So we seek out places all along the river where the density of juveniles are lower than they should be. And we try to find these spots and plant fertilized eggs in those areas. So we have the density, full capability of the river all along the river.
Everything you do, all the methods can't be controversial. Relocate fish is the most natural way to do it, but egg planting is the next best way, I think, to do it.
If we can generate a stock that is going to live up there and breed up there, then I think that's a good thing. And that shows us that they can adapt to difficult conditions.
Improving the habitat, maintaining the land, increasing the spawning grounds, relocating the fish, planting eggs, and all that on the edge of the Arctic Circle. But how can they be sure it's the right approach? Gathering data from the field is vital to understanding the effects of the conservation work.
The scientists come up with solutions or suggestions on what to do. We try to do whatever they tell us to do, and then we feed them back with information from the area.
What we're doing is to measure the juvenile density in the river, so we can compare that both between rivers, between years, and within the river, so we can see how the situation actually is.
The information collected from the 6 rivers is being evaluated by scientists at Imperial College in the UK.
So our work in Iceland has been going on now for over a decade, involving various different projects and also collaborations with the MFRI in Iceland, who provide a lot of on-the-ground and detailed long-term knowledge of these ecosystems, and they hold a lot of the data that we would need to take the project forward.
Fieldwork that can be collected on the ground can be looking at individual salmon length, weight, distributions within the river. You can look at it at each phase, at each life stage of the salmon as well. And this can directly feed into the stage structured model, which can predict the population effects and its growth and survival.
Born out of the hard work by the MFRI, these models mean that the impact of the project can be evaluated. And it doesn't stop there. The project has invested in a passive integrated transponder system to provide even more data.
We put tiny little tags in the fish. We have 3 stations in the river where they detect them when they swim by. So we can see every time a fish with this little tag in it swims by a station like this one. So we can see either when they go down the river or when you're coming up the river. It's really clever because this little tag never runs out of battery, so we can follow them through their whole life cycle. So by doing this, we can see exactly how many of them survive, where we might be actually losing them in the river, and gives us better understanding what is really going on in the river.
The Six Rivers Foundation is taking the monitoring to a new level, one that will provide much more data than the traditional approach.
We are taking fish to extreme places in the river system, way up, much further than fish has gone before. We move them up there and release them, and then monitor how they behave.
Today we are going to Hrútá. It's a tributary to Selá. It's way up. It's above 400 meters above sea level, and we are tagging adult pairs with radio tags, and hopefully they will spawn in Hrútá. This is an accessible area, but it's way above the waterfall, and we are trying to establish populations there. It's getting close to the spawning time of the salmon. This tagging operation is quite easy, and we shouldn't do any harm with the adults. They should be fine pretty much as soon as we release them and ready to spawn.
It's been snowing and raining and very difficult conditions. We even thought for a moment we wouldn't make it up here because of the river was completely covered with ice. But now we are here in a beautiful day, working on getting the tags in and releasing the fish. It's a great day.
This is the radio transmitter. We are going to attach this to a salmon. This transmitter will transmit signal for at least 1 year.
And in the bucket we have put some sleeping medicine, and they will start to go to sleep. And when they are ready, my colleague Binni takes them and puts the radio tags in. The reason why it's difficult is that they're getting ready to the spawning season, and in some cases they need to fight other males, and then it's better that the skin and the scales are tight, and so there's less chance of injuries. Now the radio tags, Stefan and Danny will follow these individuals. We will hopefully locate the spawning sites, and then we can monitor the spawning sites. If they survive the spawning in the winter, we can follow them and see if they survive it and go back to sea.
The radio tags transmit a signal which will provide the team with the GPS coordinates for each individual salmon.
The monitoring tracking program, we wanted to learn more about the behavior of fish in spawning, after spawning, and during the winter. The key question, the first question why we went into the program was, of course, to find out if it was really working, relocating fish.
I think the work here we're doing is vital. If we don't understand the salmon and its life cycle and how it thrives, we have no chance of helping it. So it's very important.
We have the tremendous group. We have now finished tagging the salmon. It was a successful operation. We have already tagged 40 adults.
The radio tags on the adult salmon operate via VHF signal and can only be monitored using close proximity equipment. It is a task that the team complete as often as possible, high up in the mountains, whatever the weather.
So we are monitoring fish by radio tags, and this goes on in a really harsh environment for the whole year around. We have probably 3 hours of light up in there now. There is 21 hours of darkness. So when we leave in the morning, we leave in darkness and we come home in darkness. In December, the fish is probably 3 feet under snow.
Go to the area where the fish are with antenna and relocate the fish. And then we monitor them the whole winter, and we track them, and we collect the data, and we can see the behavior and the movement of every single fish.
We have extremely bad weather. It's cold, but we know that the data that we're collecting is going to be useful in the future.
This is a really important part of understanding the overall life cycle. How many survive to go to the sea, how many come back, where they spawn, how successful is the spawning. That's all part of our understanding of the life cycle, and therefore part of our understanding of how eventually, hopefully, to develop approaches that support the species.
However, in isolation, how successful can the team hope to be when the salmon is in decline across the entire Atlantic?
There are finite resources going into conservation work, and the only way to make sure they're really well used is to make sure the community comes together to tackle conservation issues like this one. "800 miles to the southeast, in the far north of Scotland, lies the River Laxford. Part of the Ray Forest Estate, it is a private river that is following in the footsteps of the Six Rivers Foundation.
So this is a really monumental day for us on the Project Laxford. This is the arrays being delivered. So this is the kit that's come over from Biomark in America. This basically contains 4 pit tag arrays and all the equipment that goes with that. So solar panels, the actual arrays that go on the bed of the river, the control boxes, absolutely everything is in these boxes. This kit is going to be in for at least 10 years, probably much longer than that. What it allows us to do is tag 2,000 autumn salmon par, so juvenile salmon each year. We can track them through the river system. These 4 pit tag arrays will be located at key points through the river system from the top down to the bottom, and we can say from A to B, how long does it take the fish to get there, when do they move, how many survive, do that all the way through the river system. And because these pit tags are passive, they don't have a battery, which means they stay with the fish for its entire life. So we can track the fish back in again. But we are at a stage behind the Six Rivers. Six Rivers have already got their kit in, they're already doing this. So we're following suit basically. What we hope to do is link with that project, and then We can compare the results from those different river systems that are all at different latitudes. For me as a biologist, it's really exciting to get my hands on this kit.
Just as it does in Iceland, the pit tag system will tell the team in Scotland whether their methods are working. Water temperature at this latitude is a much bigger pressure on the salmon. Riverbank planting has been identified as the best course of action to keep the rivers cool and help the salmon.
So here we're on the Out Horn, which is one of the major tributaries of Loch Stack. It's completely lacking of virtually any tree cover whatsoever. We're looking at the addition of riparian woodland. The leaves will offer shade, which will cool the water down and hopefully future-proof it from the impacts of climate change.
So we do plan to put in quite a lot of riparian restoration woodland, and it's pretty clear to us that we know the priority sites, we know where we need to improve the riparian waters for the fish, whether it's planting trees or excluding animals from grazing.
These are mature trees. This is probably what these smaller trees will look like in 50 to 100 years' time. If you can restore the catchments, restore the riparian woodlands, increase the nutrient enrichment, increase the invertebrates, reduce the temperatures, you're getting cleaner, cold water for these salmon with lots of food. And by the time they leave the river, they've got lots of energy, lots of reserves, and we're hoping that will increase their survival at sea.
This approach, collaboration, patience, and data-driven action, is already delivering results.
The data is definitely showing that salmon letters are working, because we can see it both on the numbers of fish caught before the salmon letters and afterwards. We know exactly the number of fish who go up, what type, what size, everything. We can see it clearly on the numbers that they are improving the rivers.
Maybe our ultimate goal would be that we can be the role model for other communities to look at us and say how we did that there. Maybe we can mirror the project somewhere else.
And the Six Rivers project is a shining example of great collaboration and an exceptional opportunity that's been gifted to the people in that area. I just think it's more power to them.
The sharing of knowledge helps us to learn from each other. When I was lucky enough to attend a conference, it was amazing to see the work that's happening there, but also all across the world, from North America through to Finland, Norway. The only way we're going to manage to stem the decline of salmon is sharing that knowledge, pooling that knowledge and learning from each other and working together as closely as we can.
In Iceland, the salmon populations are looking stable. Healthy land, healthy rivers, healthy ecosystem. It's a mantra that these people live by, and it may just hold the key to the survival of the species.
I don't see this as anything short-term, it has to be long-term. I'm very hopeful by continuing to understand and apply and take some positive actions, carefully monitor them, that we can actually improve the chances of the Atlantic salmon. And not just that, but also sustain and conserve and develop and improve the ecosystem in which the Atlantic salmon live.
I'm probably in the second half of my life now. My children have now started fishing and they're really interested in this. My personal goal is to see that this will be accessible and possible for my children and even their children in the future. My ultimate goal is to be able to leave our rivers and the systems in a better shape than we received it.